To our third match of the day, RDU is going to be taking on teammate Thijs in this one. And, you know, for both of these players, I feel like they just have such different ways that they approach the game in terms of their philosophy and how they build decks. And I think that those different perspectives can offer them benefit when they practice together, when they work together on these sorts of things. I haven't been too aware of how often and frequent that's been lately, as Thijs has mainly gone into the role of, you know, being a streamer and working towards that angle, and RDU has stayed in the side of competition through and through. That's how he's built his own stream in this one. And so I'm curious about how these lineups are going to clash against each other, where we can take a look at RDU's Hunter and see what we have in store. He's brought just the good old Beast Hunter, which I'm excited to see this deck this week.
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite decks of the previous expansion. I think one of my favorite parts of Hearthstone Grandmasters were Bunny Hopper's games, where he played a lot of Beast Hunter and played it incredibly well. Last season, it was a deck that I'm a big fan of. It was a player that I'm a big fan of, and those two were coming together in perfect harmony to make me a very happy boy. But now we're seeing it still having a place potentially in the metagame, even though this new expansion has ushered in perhaps this talk of Highlander Hunter being the new Tier 1 version of Hunter.
And this deck did get some pretty powerful stuff, though. You know, the Hyena Alpha being able to provide just a very wide board presence early on, as well as, I think, a very useful effect with Desert Spear. You know, a lot of times with this deck, Unleash the Hounds feels like it can be a dead card in your hand, where Desert Spear offers the ability to slowly pick away at the 1 health minions, but at the same time, against slower decks, to chip away and develop little annoying spots on the board that you can take advantage of later on.
Yep, and on the flip side, there is a Reno Mage from Thijs. Reno the Relicologist, the new form of Reno Jackson. It's not the full heal that it used to be. It is more of a board control effect and a tempo effect. 10 damage is a ton to be able to come down on turn 6 and sweep out board states. And that, alongside Zephyrus, is now even doing enough to force Conjurer's Calling old school Cyclone Mage out of the metagame and have everyone replacing it with this Reno variant instead.
It's just unreal to me. I mean, that's the power that Luna's Pocket Galaxy, I think, offers you, is that you can play so much top end, knowing that the success-failure rate of Luna's Pocket Galaxy offers you more potential than the failure rate side of it costs you. And I think that's a big talking point for this, as we now get a look at the shield and ban phase that takes place for this Conquest. A bit of a kicker for this one. You probably know Conquest if you've been following the format, you know, for any amount of time in Hearthstone's history, but the shield phase offers a kicker into that, where you get to protect one of your decks so that it cannot be banned away.
Yeah, and you see, generally that signals a pretty strong intention that they are going to use it in the series, because that's the other kicker of the way that we are playing in the Conquest format now, is that it is a best-of-3 format in Grandmasters, but you do have 3 decks available to you by the time you get into playing, which means one of those decks does not have to win, which gives you the opportunity of leaving a deck by the wayside that you don't end up playing. But the deck that you end up protecting in the shield and ban phase is most likely going to be seen pretty early on in that series.
Yeah, indeed it is. Protected from Warrior on RDU's side and protected the Mage on Thijs' side. And so those are ineligible to be banned away. And that means we're getting into battle, and Thijs is starting off with Mage, and RDU's starting off with Hunter.
Snapkeep on the Zephyrus for Thijs. No great surprise. It can be needed as an early reactive card against decks that do plan to just consolidate threats on board and beat you up. That's what RDU's deck is going to try and do if possible. Scavenging Hyena, of course, a card that needs to be dealt with. And we already saw the power of Zephyrus into backstab in the early game coming out in that previous series from Silvername. The G2 team kill, as Admirable alluded to earlier. These two players, really one of the longest and most storied relationships between an organization and professional players that we have left in Hearthstone. It feels like G2 and RDU and Thijs in particular have just always been super happy with that relationship. G2 been supporting Hearthstone for an incredibly long time, and these two are the real mainstays of that period, where a few players have churned in and out, not just of G2, but all sorts of organizations across the board.
Yep, shout out to former teammate Nyria, who had a top 8 at the Masters Tour in Las Vegas. He very much, you know, comes in and out of the scene at times, and he's very much a firm believer in the power of purposeful practice rather than amount of practice. Yeah. And I think has shown that over the years with 2 World Championship appearances and just a fantastic career overall. Multiple championships in a single year when we swapped to the playoff system. Just wonderful stuff that we've seen from Nyria, and I hope we haven't seen the last of him in the competitive scene.
A turn 2 empty board, Zeph.
I like the Animal Companion take for Thijs rather than Wild Growth here, just simply because he has plays to follow up the Animal Companion.
Yep. Also, kind of a good news, bad news situation for G2 in this matchup because both of these players kicked off Season 2 with a loss yesterday. RDU losing 0-2 to Viper, Thijs picking up a 1-2 loss as well. So the glass half full approach is that one of your players will guarantee pick up a win this series. The glass half empty approach for G2 is that one of your players is going to start off 0-2.
This is a big turn for Thijs right here as well. You know, the initial impression is just an Animal Companion trade scenario. I'm kind of looking at Frostbolt, and the reason I'm looking at Frostbolt is because you get to connect for 3. And I think that's an important measure in this matchup, is you need to actually be connecting damage and trying to clock your opponent if you can.
Is it enough to value over the lack of mana efficiency of using Frostbolt here, though?
That's a good question. I would think so, and the reason I think so is just because you drew Reno the Relicologist here. I think if you had drawn pretty much any solid play for the middle of this game, I think it would be worth it. You know, if this would have been like a Siamat or a Power Creation, I'd probably be valuing mana efficiency instead.
I'm playing a 3-drop and trading this turn.
The future is
I actually kind of like it being Luna rather than the Animal Companion. I think this has a lot of potential upside.
So then my question is, did we take the Animal Companion incorrectly then? If we anticipated playing Luna? Or is the Luna a force place that you can then drop the Animal Companion down?
I think that's true, and also, you know, he played Zephyrus on an empty board and then picked Animal Companion. He didn't know that there was going to be a minion in response from RDU that he would want to trade into when he picked the Animal Companion. He knows that's a possibility, but he just didn't really have a Wild Growth hand. It just seemed like an Animal Companion hand, and there you go. It's just, yeah, okay, he floats mana this time round, but he was forced to in the end, unless he wants to Doomsayer Frostbolt for efficiency, but that doesn't seem very reasonable. So the Animal Companion still ends up being very useful.
And RDU's been pushed into a tough spot. That early development from Thijs meant he couldn't secure a Snake Trap, which means this Hyena Alpha is waiting.
who to shoot.
What a question.
Well, I mean, the steady shot only hits players.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's just like, your opponent?
Like, I don't think you want to shoot at all this turn. You got to get the board, Illyria.
Who to shoot.
You're just not getting the message, are you?
Well, you know, touche. If you're going to double down on it, I respect that. Shimmerfly feels like the best one. That the one drop anyway that RDU could have found. And Thijs does not find a suitable play for this turn.
I think he's worrying too much about it, though. He has board. He's pushing damage.
Shook his head.
He's curving into good stuff on the following turn. Well, let me rephrase. I don't think he should be too bothered about it.
There we go. RDU side, there are 2 copies of Deadly Shot, so a bit more worried to Doomsayer than there normally would be. Perhaps you had a Snip Snap alongside of that.
You could also really go for the gold here and Frostbolt Doomsayer to really guarantee the Doomsayer and just try and set up a Tempo Antonidas for the turn after.
To me, that would bring the same implications
Of Deadly Shot?
Yeah.
Yep.
But it would let you set up 2 Snip Snaps. You can also just set up 2 Snip Snaps.
Yeah, that's true.
To me, this offers a tad of worry with how Spring Paw and Unleash the Hounds could interact in this spot.
Yeah.
Also, just buffs. It's looking like a pretty prime Dire Frenzy and Secret turn. From RDU side, what do the Snip Snaps represent? I think for Thijs, he has the security of Reno the Relicologist in the case of overdevelopment.
Yep.
From RDU side, he's got to think about that. Plus, what does Ziliax end up doing? You know, how does Siamat start to interact here? There's a lot of strong plays that Thijs has.
Yeah, Siamat is very scary against the Dire Frenzy plus Secret play, for sure. Ziliax is too at that point.
If you go with the Hyena Alpha, you're looking at Flame Strike being a problem.
Yep.
So RDU says, let's get these 5/5s into the deck. And when I get checked, hope that some of those can show up and I can make an impact.
Right.
That Sandbinder, honestly, looking like a pretty good draw because that gives Thijs the ability to Frostbolt the Hyena, freeze it in place, Sandbinder to get some more stuff going, and have the same exact position against RDU.
Can you push initiative harder than that, though? Just ship the face, play Reno the Relicologist, forget about the secret?
I guess my question is, do you want to?
I wonder.
8 in play against nothing, your opponent at 22? Feels like a pretty game-winning situation.
Yeah, that feels good as well. You get to save the Frostbolt for Archmage later on then.
Also trade the Snip Snap, still gives himself the Reno option, but you also deal with the potential of it being a trap that you want to neutralize now.
Ah, shut off Hyena Alpha counter.
Yep.
You have Flame Strike though. I feel like Hyena Alpha's pretty invited at the moment.
It's reasonable. But yeah, I like this play. I like the using Reno for tempo this turn. Either way that you do it. I might favor just ignoring and shipping face.
Either way, you're beating down the door.
Yep. Flame Strike, go again.
Yeah, the back-to-back with Flame Strike.
Attacks with the 1-1, check freezing. Attack with the 4-6, make sure it gets his damage through before a pressure plate can kill it. I mean, I guess you do that with every minion. Just making the point.
Nah, I want that 1-1.
Yeah, we don't need this one.
9 lives could fetch a random Hunter spell now. But RDU back against the wall, and I don't think he's got the tools to climb back into this one. So then question number 2 comes to my mind. Can you find a way to counter push and kill your opponent? Tundra Rhino, Scavenging Hyena. That can sometimes do some things.
It can. Would probably require the assistance of additional buffed Scavenging Hyenas coming into his hand sooner rather than later.
That one is a big yikes.
Yeah.
Tundra Rhino, that's a lone Tundra Rhino in the deck, so that lethal potential is out the window.
And now Thijs knows that this is not pressure plate in play, which means Antonidas Frostbolt just looks fantastic here on this board state.
I'm actually curious if you use the 1-1 even to do that, just to widen yourself against the future pressure plates.
Oh, you want to value trade the Snip Snap instead and keep the 1-1?
I was thinking about it.
7 more in play, Fireball in hand, plus the ping. RDU needs defense. He needs defense right now.
He dead. Well, I guess not technically. We got a Shimmerfly.
We also have Spring Paw, Dire Frenzy the Spring Paw into the 2-3, play the other guy and kill one of the 1-1s. That is technically a way to live against what you know.
Well, your opponent has 2 fireballs. Hang on a second.
Oh, of course, yeah, the fireballs keep generating from Antonidas. Yeah, it doesn't work.
You bluff it as freezing trap.
Yeah.
There you go. I hope they believe it. But there's no way to kill the Snip Snap afterwards. That's game 1 of Thijs. RDU just doesn't have the pressure. He got fought back against so hard. And that's the benefit that the Reno Mage decks have, is when they have early game, they're so powerful.
Yeah.
It's that their early game is very limited. In this case, it's Zephyrus, Frostbolt, Doomsayer, Ancient Mysteries.
Yep, Thijs had Zephyrus, played into the Animal Companion. He tempoed out the Luna as well. Like, it really didn't seem like it took a lot for that deck from RDU to kind of fall apart a little bit. Like, Thijs just played a reasonable minion on curve every turn. And like, yeah, okay, he had the Reno. That was, I think, for me, that was the big pushing point. It was a point I really focused on. I thought it was important for him to really turn on the switch at that turn. Just Reno, clear the board, push damage, and then for the rest of the game, you just saw that pattern of just, wipe your board, hit your face with my minions.
Yeah.
And that was just good enough to end the game.
Just a good mid-range deck at that point. No Luna's Pocket Galaxy necessary, no shenanigans, just Reno is really the shenaniganry in that one. Zephyrus provided like some impact in that game, but honestly, that was not really a spectacular Zephyrus. It was just the fact that it was a 2-mana play that got to fight proactively, I think had the biggest impact in that game.
Yeah, I mean, if Rivercroc or Bloodfen Raptor just read guarantee yourself a 3-drop for next turn when you play this, like, yeah, that would be a really good card. That would be in a lot of decks.
Indeed, and it isn't a lot of decks. You just, don't play duplicates in them.
Yeah.
So that's game number 1 in the books between these two. They're fighting to see if they can keep their head above water. Loser of this match in this team battle, they dropped to 0-2 to start their season. So still some more play left going on. We're our 3rd match of the day, and we have 2 more that's coming up after that. So stay tuned. More Hearthstone Grandmasters coming up.
Welcome to this edition of Around the Fern with TJ and Just Saying.
Happy to be here.
Glad to hear it. So I've talked to this about you before. I've never heard you exclaim. So we have an hour in this room, and my goal is going to be to get you to exclaim.
That's just not going to happen.
It is going to happen. Imagine you're walking down the street. You just got lunch. It's a delicious burrito. You're hungry. You haven't eaten in 2 days. Then some guy walks up on the street, punches you in the face, and steals your burrito. You're out of money. You don't have cash. You didn't drive there. You walked there an hour. And now this guy comes up and punches you and steals your burrito. How do you react?
I don't even like burritos. I thank the guy and say, whatever. I was waiting for
What's your
Uber Eats
favorite
anyway.
food?
I mean, it has to be something with rice, but like, I kind of like risotto. The Italian style is very nice.
Italian style risotto. Now imagine you're walking down the street, you get your Italian risotto, and then a guy comes up to you, punches you in the face, and steals your risotto. What do you do?
Actually, I just...
Do you yell? Do you
I
scream?
get confused. I'm mad.
You're mad, so you
But-
want to yell.
But then I think this guy probably needs it more than me. I don't think it's physically
Let's say you're in a
possible for me.
giant field and you're strapped to a chair. The only person that can save you is 1,000 yards away. If you don't yell to them to communicate to them, you're going to sit in that chair forever because that's the only other person on earth. Do you yell to them to save your life?
I mean, if he's the only other person on Earth, do I like this guy? Are we friends even?
He's blind.
I just admit that this is the end. Last person on Earth. I don't know about, like, is his personality nice? Like, is he fun to hang out with? Or
Can we play a game?
yeah, we can play
I'm
games.
going to say a word, and you have to say it slightly louder. Risotto. 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 Risotto.
Risotto.
Saw Just Saying there during the break, who would be facing off against PNC later today in the Americas region. Make sure you want to catch that one. And we're in the middle right now of RDU taking on Thijs in this one. And Thijs up to a 1-0 lead with just some good old Reno Mage play. Just blew up some stuff and attacked RDU. Pretty honestly, aside from the Reno effect, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's a very important series, I'd say, for both of these players. We talked about, the team relationship between the two of them, but just from a personal level, both of them had slightly underwhelming seasons in Season 1. I think Thijs more so than RDU. Thijs 4-10 record, but RDU himself had a negative record with 6 and 8, and they are both, deeply competitive, proud players, so they would have been looking to get off to a good start here, just so they are more concerned about those top 4 playoff spots than they are about that bottom 1 relegation spot. And if one of these players is going to start 0-2, then suddenly it's hard to shake that feeling of, oh, here we go again. I'm back, grinding out from the bottom of the league again, going into week 2. It's just a tough spot to be in, and this is now a crucial position for RDU not to just fall down to a double 2-0 defeat in his back-to-back games in week 1.
Not only that, relegation's at stake. in this season as well. So you got to fight tooth and nail to avoid that. And you can take a look at the ban and pick situation that we have here. That little divine shield, it represents the deck that they had protected during the ban phase, which means it cannot be banned away during that. And since we're in Conquest right now, Thijs has won with his Mage, so it's no longer eligible for play. Artie, you got to run back the Hunter in this one and is facing up against Priest in this matchup. What's your take on this one? Because I'm kind of curious how this matchup pans out.
Yeah, it's not one that I've had a lot of experience with. I've played a lot of Combo Priest this expansion up to this point because that's just who I am. I like playing degenerate decks, and Combo Priest fits that bill entirely. But not a very common deck on the other side in terms of the Beast Hunter from RDU. Having access to double Deadly Shot in the deck is definitely going to be a big advantage, alongside the potential of what the secrets can do to mess with minions, the pressure plate, that kind of combination. Nausea Cleric on 1 is still Nausea Cleric on 1. And when you have injured Tolvir to back that up, RDU might now be in a little bit of trouble. I was about to extol the virtues of this opening hand that RDU has, because he has a lot of great removal tools. Spring Pour, Desert Spear, Deadly Shot can all go a long way to control the board through the opening turns, which is very, very crucial against this Priest deck. Even though, you know, the goal of the deck on the surface would seem to be to build up a big minion in the later stages of the game, it is actually a very, very fast, aggressive deck in terms of how quickly it curves out and makes big minions.
And RDU's face to the Circle of Healing. Psychopomp drawn off the back of that as well.
Four damage available now with Timberwolf, Spring Pour, not enough because of that Circle of Healing. Desert Spear starting to look a little bit neutered as well. Oh boy.
What to do?
Is it already time to start thinking about Deadly Shot? All right, Vader.
Now.
I mean, what are you going to do here?
To shoot.
I mean, coin Deadly Shots and hits the 2/6. In his mind, he then has the Timberwolf and the 2 Spring Pours or the Desert Spear to be able to take care of the board state, but it's such a ridiculous investment to coin Deadly Shot that board.
Oh my. Bluff equity, is that the secret represents?
I think so.
So Thijs says, I'm okay with returning this Northshire Cleric, I'll just replay it.
Yep. But what he can't do this turn is really play too many spells, because neither of these minions is one that he wants to see go down to pressure plate. Thijs decides he's going to do it anyway.
Have the Psychopomp in hand.
It's true.
You're not getting Northshire Cleric value immediately.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. It's not a lot of proactive things that are happening, though. That's really the one situation here for Thijs that I'm seeing. It's like it's building towards that boiling point where you have the tools and suddenly RDU's dead.
This Pyromancer does play around that Deadly Shot on curve just that little bit. Would mean that Unleash the Hound's Timberwolf, for example, would be able to take care of the 2/6, but Thijs does not care about that play one little bit, because that would curve perfectly into his Psychopomp play, which then guarantees to revive that 2/6 straight back again.
Yeah, I was looking at setting the Desert Spear here. I think that was on RDU's mind, was set the Desert Spear and then look for a Scavenging Hyena Timberwolf turn.
Yes.
I'm curious if the Master's Call changes any of that, if you have a better situation. You know, Unleash the Hounds is starting to look like an important pickup at this point, but you only have one copy of that in the deck. And Inner Fire now gets drawn. That represents 12 on the Tolvir if Thijs wants to take it, and almost certainly he'll be taking it this turn.
Yeah, Pyro will proc, which will lower the health by 1 point after the Divine Spirit. Doesn't have the mana to Divine Spirit heal and Inner Fire afterwards.
So it ticks it to 10 damage. I'm sorry, 11 damage instead?
Yeah.
And then if you want to cast the Inner Fire, while the Pyromancer's biting the dust?
Yep. It's a little bit ugly because there was a Pyro on the board last turn. I do understand it. It represents 3 damage in and of itself, and it just helps consolidate a board presence against some of the things that RDU would be fighting back with. Just so happens it has made this turn just a little bit awkward.
And in RDU's deck, the 4 secrets are Snake Trap, Rat Trap, Pressure Plate, Freezing Trap. Freezing and Pressure Plate have been taken out of the equation.
Quickly.
Just going to go for the 6/6
card
and
draw.
then take the double card draw off the Nautria Cleric.
Yeah, I like
Pretty
that.
smart compromise, honestly.
RDU he might be dead. Like
Oh.
the fact that he set up the Desert Spear to attack, and that now deals him 6 damage on the return.
I think that's another reason why the Inner Fire was a pretty important choice there for Thijs, is that it punishes so hard into the weapon attack. Which I think is also why he ends up
Going to
healing
shoot.
onto the Tolvir again, which did look a little bit surprising to me initially. But for example, it means now that, you know, a 1-mana beast plus kill command doesn't just remove it without RDU having to send his face into it.
What to do?
RDU's expression pretty much says it all right now. He's in trouble. Going back to what I said just before this game started, it's not just in trouble in terms of losing this series. It would be a second consecutive 2-0 defeat for him at the start of the season.
Now.
Whom to shoot?
Rips it.
Right between the eyes.
Okay. High Priest Armor into Psychopomp is a revolting combination. Snake Trap goes. We might see Armet Power Word Shield here with the Pyromancer doing the work to sweep the board. Could keep the Pyro alive or just throw the extra health onto the Armet for more upside next turn.
Power Word Shield first, then play the Amet. Also an opportunity.
Yep.
Extra arms found as well.
I see a dark future.
Extra
game.
armed Psychopomp available for the following turn if RDU even has any kind of game to fight back against this board, which it really doesn't look like he does. Well, congratulations. Coin Unleash the Beast solves that problem of the 6/5. Finally. Does then bring the Desert Spear into play as well, but it's still just not going to be good enough.
No, that doesn't solve any problems. I think RDU is smart to try to find a deviation here. He doesn't stay alive, just barely because of that extra arms. He was so close to stabilizing this position. A timely inner fire from Thijs forced out just enough extra damage, and then finding that extra arms in the card draw. Solidifies
Arms!
2.
More arms! More arms! Additional, oh, come on.
It's a teammate.
That Armet could have had so many arms. High Priest.
Oh, it had plenty of arms.
Armet. Get it? Hey.
Hey! 2-0 from Thijs. Sets him to a 1-1 record to start his season, and for RDU, it's back to the drawing board. For now, anyway. Still plenty of play left, though. I mean, it's 14 matches across the board that you're going to play over the next 7 weeks of Grandmasters. So still plenty of time to secure himself a winning record in that regard.
Yeah, but as I kept saying, it's not a good feeling. You know, RDU would have been excited coming into a new format. He's felt really good about this expansion as well from the parts of his stream that I have watched and from just seeing the way he's been talking on Twitter about the new expansion. He's been pretty happy with it. So I feel like he would have felt like he was coming into this season very strong. And to then go up to a 0-2 defeat in match score, which was also 0-2 in games both times. Like, he is still waiting for his first game win, let alone match win after week 1. That's a rough spot to be in. And as you keep mentioning, relegation on the line. It might seem a little early to start talking about it week 1, but you have to have it in the back of your mind at all times because being a Grandmaster is where you want to be. It is rough out there in the shark-infested waters of the Masters Tour program.
Indeed it is. And Thijs sounds like he's ready for an interview. Thijs, can you hear us?
Yes, perfectly.
Congratulations on your win here this week. You did it with 2 of the most powerful ones that are out there right now. Talk to me about your thoughts on the Grandmaster changes overall. What have you liked and what has really appealed to you?
I was very happy with the Grandmaster chances. Specialist was definitely not my format. I like it way more. I think Hearthstone is beautiful when you can play like multi-deck formats. And yeah, I have always been already a little bit of a Conquest fan, or I didn't mind it much. So I feel at home a bit.
So I want to talk to you about, while we have you here, we didn't really get to interview you much last season because unfortunately you weren't winning too many matches.
We start a new season, you know that. And the first weeks you were not there, so that was on you.
All right, good point. Yeah, no, I take that one. So while we do have you here, you know, obviously relegation comes into play this time around, so you have to improve on your performance from Season 1 if you're going to be a part of the Masters, part of Grandmasters, which I'm sure all of your fans are really rooting for you to do so. How much does it mean to get off to a 2-0 victory, even if it's over a teammate and a little bit bittersweet against RDU?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the best to like defeat your like teammate. Radu and me, we are teammates for 4 years already, so that's a bit tough. But it just happens in competition. But yeah, I'm happy that I at least started off with 1-1. But I was even hoping for a 2-0. I felt very good in against as well Hunter Race as RDU with my lineup. So I was like still even hoping to go up with a better start. But yeah, I'm happy. I don't blame myself too much for last season as well. I was out the 2 weeks before, so yeah, I didn't take these last 2 weeks too serious anymore. But now I have a lot of motivation. I want to do well. I want to prove it once again. So no, I feel good.
So talk to me about your preparation with this week. You know, being teammates, but also playing against other this week. Did you find yourself practicing with him a lot? And then also just about your lineup, how did you jump on this one? And were there any decks that you couldn't play with that you really wanted to bring?
Yeah, I really wanted to bring Quest Shaman, but the Rise of Priest really scared me. I think Quest Shaman is very good, and it might be like seeing some like performance also over the next week. I was sad that I had to bring Warrior, but it's just too good. I actually practiced the last 2 days for the first time Control Warrior, but yeah, now it's nerfed already. I hope it will just never see play anymore.
My boy!
But no. But I feel this format is also very comparable to Ladder, what we have now. It's a lot of like the good decks facing each other, matchups. It's way more about matchups now than how you tech your decks or like everything. The ranges are very wide, so I'm very happy, and I think there's definitely a format that I also am less disadvantaged because I maybe don't practice as much off stream, but still play a lot of Ladder and Hearthstone. So I'm very happy with that.
So do you feel that's your biggest advantage, or do you think it would be something else that's giving you a competitive edge in this season?
I feel like last season was kind of tough. Like some people are like a lot of players, they just practice like 6-8 hours maybe a day off stream, practicing like their specialist decks. And well, I want to compete streaming and competing together. Doesn't always go well. You cannot do two things 100%. So it's a little bit of balancing, but I feel now the balance will be a bit easier for me.
Yeah, well, it's not a question. We're going to let you go, but I do want to just say before we let you go that it's incredible that you continue to be like one of the biggest streamers in Hearthstone, and also show that you can turn it on a competitive level. You know, without that super intense practice schedule, I think you continue to impress all of us. So, Thijs, congratulations. Hope you continue to do well this season.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thijs has become so well-spoken over the years, and I just love to hear his thoughts because everything he says is very clean and it's very concise, and he takes all those top thoughts that he has and he puts them into one nice, neat little package for you.
Yeah. I mentioned this yesterday, but, you know, when I started really, gaining some traction as a Hearthstone caster, I don't know why it was, but I kept taking these weird random shots at Thijs and just saying that, he was washed up and a casual now and he was just streaming, and he time after time, he just proved everyone wrong, or proved me wrong at least. And I've learned my lesson now. I have a phenomenal amount of respect for Thijs. I also think he's a really great guy. I love talking to him when we get to be at events together. Some of my earliest memories are hanging out with Thijs at some of the events that I was qualifying for as, through open bracket players, and he was getting invites to because he was freaking Thijs. Of course he did. And I was just, getting to hang out with Thijs and just seeing how down to earth and humble and friendly he was. Thijs is a great guy. I want to see many, many more years of Thijs being at the very top of Hearthstone.
Well, when you win an Aston Martin, it's hard to quit playing.
Yeah, true story.
Yeah, true story. Don't worry, Thijs, I'll get some funky interviews with you. He asked me to get a little bit fun and outside the box with him. He wanted to joke around a bit, so I'll figure something out that works for Thijs in that regard.
I'll just keep trolling him. It's fine.
That works for me.